Hello, everybody. Okay, let's see. It is Sunday, June 9th. We have some topics today, and we may have some guests. So let's get right into it. First of all, as always, 3 items from Gary's media library. I don't remember. Did we do movies last week? I don't remember. Movies could be in the mix. They're not this time, but I'm just bracing her. Movies, video games, records, who knows? Who knows? Just because at some point, even though I have a lot of books back here, there's probably only 6 or 10 subjects. And I don't want to get to a point where like, here's another book on archaeology. Here's another book on comparative mythology, whatever. And like I'm going to be delving into other libraries, so to speak, in my possession. Okay. But this time, 3 books. One of these I've not read yet. We'll start with that. The other I have. This showed up from Amazon just a few days ago. Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. Okay. I can tell you, just the title alone, this is not a book I would normally read. It sounds pretty far out there. Furthermore, when you read the subject, like what this is about, actually, let's see if there's an easy blurb back here. There's no easy blurb. Basically, from what I understand, this is talking about strange connections between the CIA and its MK Ultra experiments, which were like mind control experiments, and Charles Manson. Now, that also on its face is something that normally I would be like, that sounds like fun conversation over drinks, but also a bunch of bullshit. But the author of this one, Tom O'Neill, he's a real, however you define that, journalist who spent years and years and years looking into this. He's been interviewed a couple places in the past few months promoting the book. I've caught a few of those interviews. It is actually pretty fascinating and intriguing, and he's really done his homework. Now, I have not read this book yet, so I can't tell you if it's just smoke but no fire. But it's interesting. It's interesting, and I'm looking forward to reading it. I figure if nothing else, it will be just sort of fun in a conspiracy theory sort of way. That's a fascinating era. I, like everyone else who's even remotely into true crime, have read Helter Skelter, which over the years has come. It's been interesting to watch the evolution of perception of Bugliosi, who was the prosecutor in the Manson case, where he went from, when I was a kid, this superstar who pulled off an amazingly difficult and challenging case and got a conviction. It is still, in all fairness, extraordinary what he pulled off. What has come to light over the past few decades is that maybe he got there by being unethical and dishonest. So anyway, very interested in this, very excited about this. We'll see how it goes. All right, next on the red, this is something I posted on my social media, and because they were just out on my desk, I'm going to share them. I have these 3 books, Pocket Classics. These are actually republications. I think originally these would have been published by Marvel. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe that's the history of them. Basically, I don't know what let's see if we can find an original copyright date. I want to say it was probably early 80s. This edition is 84. I suspect the originals were at least a few years before that. But basically it was, you see things like this before. It's just illustrated classics. They find all these books that kids should read in school, and they sex them up by doing them like comic book style. So let's see here. This is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I don't have all of them. There were I think were dozens and dozens of these. I've been trying to collect all the ones that I remember from childhood that were drawn by Nestor Redondo. He was a Filipino comic artist. Most of his work was Swamp Thing, which he did extraordinarily well. He's done a bunch of things. If you Google Nestor Redondo, you'll find a bunch of his work. An amazing inker, one of the great old school pen and inkers. Okay. Somehow when I was a kid, I ended up with a pile of these. I might have had some that were done by other artists, but I just didn't think they were as good. Even as a kid, I felt like Redondo's, where I was like, oh wow, I really like love how he draws. And just lately I've been trying to pick up the ones I remember from childhood and ones I might have missed that were also drawn by Redondo. I have a eBay auction that I bid on going right now. Doesn't seem like anyone else has noticed it yet. Fortunately, these are not highly collectible. They're very, very gettable. They're very, very inexpensive. It more becomes a question, as usually is the case with this kind of thing, with condition. But I don't need them. I'm not collecting in the sense of I want to slab them and hang them on my wall. I actually want to sit and read them. So as long as the pages are present and, you know, they're not torn or taped up or something, I'm interested. So anyway, we'll see. There's a bunch more I want. There's a Dracula one. There's a Frankenstein one. There's a War of the Worlds, which of course, I mean, I've got to have. And I think he did some, he might have done a couple Shakespeare's. I don't remember. There's a list I have open on one of my tabs of all the ones that he illustrated. Anyway, there. And then finally, I'm just looking at I have ringing notifications. Is someone outside the house? Are they coming for me? Is it finally happening? No. Just a bird. Finally, Joe Sacco's classic graphic, this isn't really a graphic novel, it's sort of graphic journalism, Palestine. Maybe you've heard of this place, been on the news a lot. Anyway, it is something I revisited for obvious reasons and was struck all over again by the achievement and the beauty of the work in every sense. The writing, the approach, the drawing, all of it. It's a really, really, really amazing. Again, we'll just call it a graphic novel. That's not really what it is. But Joe Sacco's, think of him as like a comic journalist. Think of him as the real world example of what I pretend to be in DvsM, which is this person collecting all this stuff and trying to document it in comic book form. He's like actually doing it, nonfiction. I think it was in the early 90s, spent a couple months living in Palestine, meeting people, documenting their stories, living with them, eating with them, and just documenting that whole time he spent there. It is, I mean, well, there we go. I'm speechless. I'm speechless. And I'm speechless every time I pick it up. I don't remember when I first encountered Palestine, but it is a very, very, very impressive work. And also, you know, if you're not interested in anthropology, you're not interested in sociology, you're not interested in politics, you're not interested in history, you're just like, even if the topic's not interesting to you, if you are interested in sequential art and ink, you probably should check out Palestine. It's beautifully done. I'm looking to see if there's, I'm just randomly, I'm not picking like, oh, these are the perfect example, but I'm just randomly picking just to give you a sense of what it looks like. I don't see, there's hatching there that you're not going to see on my screen. I'm just randomly flipping. Just really, when it comes just to layout, just really fun, really interesting. I mean, fun. Fun is sort of a bizarre word to pick given the subject matter, but I mean, this guy knows how to lay out a page. It's beautifully done. It's also just powerful. It's very interesting. A one-of-a-kind sort of book. All right. Those are the 3 books. I haven't even been looking at the chat. What's going on in the chat? Let's see here. Paul, good. I've just been stalling until you showed up, Paul. Paul, I missed for 30 seconds. Can you fill me in? Let's see. Gary, as you record this, just now, this is from Jim Lujan, if you're just listening. As you record this, who made Jim a moderator, by the way? What an oversight. Okay. As you record this, just know I'm literally drawing about 60 background characters. Please show me your impressed expression. What does an impressed expression? I'm trying to decide how I want to perform impressed expression. How is that? I'm open to director suggestions. Okay, so I'm gonna do some housekeeping updates, what's going on before we let in our guest, our maybe first guest. Other people could show up, but we've got at least one. Where are we at? So first of all, oh, you know what? Let me look at the calendar. I don't even remember what we talked about last time. Where are we? Let's see here. Okay, so I had done a live stream after the Making Comics guys were here for Fan Fusion, so we don't have to talk about any of that. So I think where we left off was I had my script for the next comic, DvsM 2001, almost at the point where I was ready to pass it around for reading and feedback. I did get to that point. I think I was really close last time I streamed, so it didn't take much longer than that. I also don't remember if I talked about this or not, but in looking for readers, I took a different approach this time where, aside from people I want to use as live model references, so their likeness will be in the book, those people I have, at least the ones I've approached, I haven't approached all of them yet, which is on my to-do list. Hopefully next time we stream, I will have talked to everybody that I want to sit for me. But I have approached those people I go to and say, hey, I would like to take reference photos of you, if you're okay with that. You'd be looking like this character in the script. If you'd like to read the script to see what your character is doing, I'm happy to share it with you. So those, there has been some one-to-one, like going to people and saying like, hey, would you like to read the script? Aside from that, though, when we're just talking about reading for feedback and notes and impressions, I'm doing it different this time. In the past, I've gone to people who I thought, you know, maybe I wanted their specific feedback, or I had some sense that there's someone who should read it. I'm not doing it that way this time because I have this concern that not based on anything. No one's ever, I want to be clear to anyone who's read the scripts in the past, no one's ever given me an impression to make me feel this way. This is purely my own aha moment / neuroses. This feeling that if you ask someone to read your script, it's almost impossible for them to say no. So they might be open, they might be excited, or they might be doing it out of friendly obligation. And I didn't want that. I wanted readers who actually were genuinely expressing some interest in reading. So to achieve that, I basically went to Facebook message groups that I have. There's a few, and just dropped an announcement in there. Hey, the script is at a stage where people can look at it. If you are interested in reading it over and giving me whatever reaction you have, DM me privately. That's sort of been my approach. In all, there were about 6 people who expressed interest. I sent I've heard back from 3, waiting on 3 more. So I'm about halfway through that process. I don't want to talk about the feedback I've gotten on the first 3 because I don't want to color or steer or mess with anyone's feedback who's still reading. So I don't want to say like, oh, everybody had some trouble with this part or whatever. Or everybody loved this part. I don't want to, I want them to be sort of in a clean room and not getting any impression of what other people thought about, thinking about other people's reactions or whatever. Anyway, half the people have gotten back to me, waiting for the other half. In the meantime, I have been chipping away on stuff that I can work on. Well, first of all, the ideas never stop coming, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I guess I should be worried when they do stop coming. So even though I've not been doing any new revisions of the script, because I've just made the promise to myself I'm going to step away from it while people are reading and then circle back once I get feedback from everybody. Nevertheless, you still get ideas the whole time. I have my little pile of Post-it notes and cards here where I was like, oh, it should be like this. Oh, no, he should say this instead. So there's all these little changes. Once I do reopen the Word doc to do a new version, I have a list of changes I want to make, in addition to whatever changes I may or may not make based on feedback. Off the top of my head, there are some things I want to revisit based on the feedback I've gotten so far. But most the stuff here in my notes is just my own self-generated revisions. Just sitting and thinking about, it's like, oh, it'd be even better if this happened. It'd be even better if this happened. Let's see here. From Jim, reading your script tonight at 7:30 p.m. It's on the calendar. Wow. I hope there's a reminder with the sound effect. So, in the meantime, I've been trying to dial in character and concept design, which, if you saw the thumbnail for this video, I had some actors. I have a folder. Well, actually, I can tell you a little bit about my folder, my secret DvsM folder. Let's see here. Where is it? DvsM 2001, The Soldier. Okay. So I have a folder on my desktop. This is for all the hackers out there, just so they know exactly where to look. I have a folder on my desktop, DvsM 2001, The Soldier. In it are all these subfolders. One, for example, 2001 docs. Those are all the versions of the script so far. All my notes that I've transcribed, everything. Right now, I'm looking at it, I'm not going to count, but I would say there's probably 18 different Word docs in there, or PDFs. Versions of scripts. Every time there's a major script change, that becomes a new version. I I have reference notes. I have a skeleton draft I did. I have, when I'm trying to work things out, like one is just story problem 3/13/24. So apparently on March, I don't even remember what this is, on March 13th of this year, there was a problem I was trying to figure out, and I thought if I just sat and, you know, typed about it, like spelled out the problem first, I don't understand how we're going to get from A to B, and then just start journaling on it, basically, like eventually shake something loose. So there's just any kind of written doc is in this folder. The rest of these are basically visual references for different things in the comic. This is basically, it's my reference and concept folder overwhelmingly. I have there's some dinosaurs, of course, in this one. I have a folder, reference images of them, skeletons, artist recreations, models, like everything I can find is a visual reference of this thing for when I do my spin on it. What I'll be looking at to make sure I'm getting all the scientific details right. And then I'll go off in my own direction of how I think it should look. Clothes, weapons, and gear. This is a soldier one. So what are they wearing? What kind of weapons do they have? What kind of things are they carrying? There's a satellite phone. This is 2001. There's no cell phone. Well, there'd be some cell phones. They wouldn't be great. But these people are remote. They wouldn't work anywhere. They wouldn't have service. So they would have to have a sat phone, especially since they're military. What does a sat phone look like in 2001? And this is just like something I do with every DvsM, is getting into what are the things you're going to see in this book, and what does that thing look like? What does it really, really look like? Because I'm a accuracy wonk, and I want to make sure that every little thing I'm doing, whether it's the Dodge Monaco in 75 or Jenny's camera in 97 or the projector in 79, and every other little small detail in the background, the coffee maker in 79, if you even notice the coffee maker, there's a coffee maker. There's just whatever the little things are, what's correct for that time, what specific thing am I drawing, and give me a lot of references of that so I know what it looks like. So yeah, satellite phone. There's vehicles. So I have a bunch of images of certain vehicles. There's just et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some of these are still empty. I have a folder here that's where this takes place, like the actual geographic location. And my plan is later this year, probably September or October, to actually drive out there. It's about 4 hours from my place, and take a gazillion pictures. So I have references of what do the trees look like? What does the terrain look like? What is the skyline? What does the actual mountain line look like? Are there any cool little things out there that I don't even know exist, but if I see it, I'll be like, oh, I got to work that in the background because it adds some local character or whatever. I'm jumping all over the place, but anyway, the thumbnail, those are all images pulled from my character ref folder. In character refs, I have my doodles of what these characters look like. I have characters from movies or actors, the distinction being an actor not from a movie, just like a picture of an actor, that I picture these characters sort of looking like. Mostly characters from movies, where it's like sort of like this guy, sort of like this guy, for each of the 6 characters that are in this book. And then sprinkled in there, pictures scraped off Facebook of the friends of mine that I am hoping will stand in for all these characters. So some I'll have like character name, and then hyphen, and then real life person. The only one I'm going to talk about right now, because I've talked to him a lot about it, and I think I've already brought it up. Scott Lost from Making Comics is going to stand in for one of the characters in this book. So I might have, I think I have like 2 or 3 pictures of Scott in here, along with pictures of his character's name, like famous, like people in movies or whatever, that I think kind of like this, kind of like this. I'm going to make him look kind of like this. This just helps me get a feel for a character vibe and aesthetic. Some of the, I don't know how close or far some of these will be. I have a feeling from the people who are standing in, some of the characters I think are going to look very, very close to their real life live model counterparts. So, for example, Dr. Wagner in 79 looks a lot like Mary, who stood in for her. So there's almost no like shift. I think Scott Loft's character will be something like that. Now, there'll be, and look, Scott, no shade on you. Time is the fire in which we burn. But there'll be a lot of rolling ages back for these, because a lot of my friends, a lot of people I'm going to be recruiting to be live models are about my age. They're in their 40s or whatever. The characters in this story are soldiers more or less in their prime. So late 20s, early 30s. So a lot of them are going to be kind of, let's give you a little glow up. Let's roll you back a little bit. Also, there'll probably be a lot of body modification. Scott's a pretty in shape guy. I probably won't need to do that. Some of the other people I've picked, it's not that they're not in shape, but I might have written them as a character who's really buff or really big or really brawny or something. And the person I'm going to use as a live model is not necessarily. So there'll be a lot of, massaging in that direction. And some, I think I'll just be using them very, very basically, and the actual final character is going to look very different. An example of that from the comics is there's bunches of examples. First of all, Peter from 79. My friend Brian stood in for him. Doesn't look a lot like Brian. And then famously, Old Man in Black, George in 75, I stood in for. It doesn't look a lot. I mean, he looks like my grandpa a little bit. He looks vaguely like me, but there'll be characters in this one that'll be like that, where these characters look vaguely like the person I had sit, but maybe you would never know. Others will look exactly. Okay, I don't know what else to say. Let's check the chat, and then I don't want to leave my guests sitting in the green room too long, so maybe we'll just get going on that. Let's see here. Paul fell asleep. Yeah, that is very specific. Yes. Look, I feel like I've had this conversation before. I recognize that a lot of these details that I obsess over in DvsM won't matter to 90% of the audience. Actually, I don't know. At this stage, now that I've been doing these books for years, when it comes to fans, like people who buy every book, I have to assume some percent of them, part of what they like about it is the attention to detail. So I bet if you look at the average comic audience, okay, let's say 5% of them would care about anachronisms or sloppy renditions of very specific things, inaccurate renditions of very specific things. For example, a specific car. Like if I did the headlights on the Monaco different than they actually were, let's say 5% of people would care about that. I would propose that of my fans, of DvsM fans, the percentage is higher. I'm not going to pretend it's 50%. I know this is more my journey. But I bet if it's 5% in the general comic audience population, it might be like 10 or 15% in the DvsM fandom, because I think that's like part of what they expect now. And I do think there's a small but significant minority of DvsM fans that I've created now an expectation. And if I ever did just do generic car and drew it, and it's no particular car, no particular model, I think that would be especially jarring, where if you did that in an Iron Man book, no one would give a shit. I think I've created an expectation. But I also know this is just my process. For whatever reason, this is the old thing of if you really want to understand a frog, you can dissect it, but you're going to kill the frog in the process. I don't need to understand why this is part of my approach to storytelling and drawing a comic, like getting all these details exactly right. It just is, it's become now a part of it. So I'm riding this train all the way to book sets. Let's see here. He does kind of have a Yul Brynner. Now, you know what? I didn't think of that, but he kind of does. Now I'm going to have to go and do some Googling of Yul Brynner reference pics. That's not bad. Thank you for that. I got to remember that. Don't send any more nudes, Paul. I have all the nudes I need. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciated. We're good. I have more than I'll ever need. Okay. 90% seems low. What was the 90%? Oh, yeah. By the way, Donnie, you and Mr. Waters, we are due for dinner and drinks. Not only because it's been a while, but also kind of like the two of you for parts in the book. I need to make my pitch to you two. We're making this publicly now. Now there's social pressure for you to agree to do this, and Mr. Waters. You two have good parts. See, have you ever heard people say, like, I wrote it with this person in mind? I wrote these two parts with you guys in mind. I think I think it'd be cool. It'd be cool. We'll talk. Let's go get cheeseburgers and beers. I'll tell you about it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I know. See, part of it is my own. Nothing will check me out more than anachronisms. It really drives me crazy. And also just, I mean, I'm sure that's the obvious, easy answer of why I'm that way. It checks me out. It checks me out to, you know, if I know, like, they didn't have that then, or they didn't do that then, or not everyone had that, or whatever. Also with language, no one said that in that era. Like, no one would say it that way. No one would talk about it that way. But this also extends to the dinosaur stuff. You wouldn't think in a concept like this on paper that it would matter so much that dinosaurs are accurate. I spend a ton of time, I've talked about this with the past two, a ton of time trying to dial in the dinosaurs as accurately as possible. I want them to be, these are the animals that actually existed on Earth. The animals, these aren't kaiju. These aren't monsters. Like, this is, like, they looked like this. They acted like this. This is plausible. And that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. And I did a whole video about this, I think, for 97. I have a lot of respect and affection for paleo artists. I think it's one of the coolest jobs you could have. And because I respect it and love it so much, I never go into that water lightly. I never assume it's no big deal and I'll just draw whatever, fucking Barney, it doesn't matter, blah, you know, but here's the teeth, here's the tail, cool. You know, I always feel like, you know, there are people who do this for a living and they take it very, very seriously. And I also respect what they do, and I'm going to take it seriously. So that's something will probably be a future video, dialing in the dinosaurs. For this one, I've had to do it 2 times already. Of course, there were no dinosaurs in 75, but both the Oviraptor in 79 and the Styracosaur and Deinonychus in 97 spent a lot of time trying to do a respectable effort on them. let's see here. Sweet. All right. Excellent. Now we just got to get Marcus in and we're good. Let's see here. Yeah, there you go. There we go. From Jim. Gary, can my doctor character cameo have a spin-off? Maybe I could have a wisecracking little robot, or it could be a Cuban band leader and have a redheaded wife. These are completely original suggestions. I still haven't decided if your doctor character survived the events of 79. I guess I need to figure that out before I can approve any spin-offs. We could do prequels. Day in the life of Dr. Luna. Yeah, Barney it would be cool to have a Barney cameo. I'm trying to figure out if there's any place to squeeze him in the background. And I can't really picture. I do think when I was doing the first DvsM 75, I was very mindful of the fact that I was doing the first issue of Dinosaurs versus Marsbots and there were no dinosaurs. And if I recall, I haven't read 75 in a while. I know this was at least my thought. I don't know if it made it to the final page. I worked in 2 dinosaurs as little Easter eggs. I think Blake has a drawing of a dinosaur on the fridge. And I believe when we first see him, he might be holding a toy dinosaur. And furthermore, when they're driving to the house in Wilcox, there's a buzzard eating some roadkill, which to me was vaguely like a little bit of a dinosaur wink. Superfans can fact check me to make sure those 3 Easter eggs are in there, but that's at least I know that was something I had thought about it. Like I said, I don't know if all 3 survived to the end. Okay, let's bring in the only or first person who's hopped on today. You know him well from CircWorks Art Labs, Mr. Scott Circlin. Play him in, band. Play him in. I'm not hearing the band. I don't know. The band's not coming through. They probably have a bad connection. I'm sorry.
Not hearing it, Gary. Not hearing it.
It's probably Wi-Fi problems. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing all right. Just want to let everyone know I am one of the people that have no interest in reading Gary's script.
That's right.
He offered it to me, and I said, no, I don't want to read it. I don't care about it.
Yeah, that's right.
No, actually, I'm very big into. I don't want any kind of spoilers. I want to read it as it's intended, and I'm a very patient person.
I'm totally cool with that, and I would probably be the same. Just so you know, Scott Lost, who's going to be playing one of the characters, he also was like, nope, I don't want to read it. And I was like, I'm going to be at art retreat. I'm going to be directing you. I'm going to be like, act like you're doing this, act like you're doing this. So you're going to, he's like, doesn't matter. I don't want to know. Like he wants that fresh experience. He's one of those guys that doesn't even like to watch movie trailers.
Really? See, I don't go that far. It like if you were to put out like a little teaser, like some artwork or something, I wouldn't try to avoid that. Anything that you as the person behind the book wants to put out there, I'm okay with that because I trust you. And it was interesting what you said about sort of building an audience of people what to expect, because I'm definitely you have set that kind of expectation, because I would hold you to a higher standard as far as, like you said, all of the research that goes into things than I would somebody else. I probably wouldn't care as much if it was a little bit off or whatever. Like with my own book, I specifically didn't put any particular dates. It's just sort of a feeling, because there's certain things I want to throw in there, and I don't want people to say, well, the Rubik's Cube wasn't actually invented until this time, or it wasn't popularized by this or something like that. So it's just like there's no actual dates in it.
Yeah,
it's sort of an alternate reality. So,
well, it's funny. I think of yours as the date of yours is just 80s. That's when it takes place in 80s.
Yeah.
Really. So if anything 80s that you plausibly, really though, when I think about it, it's very much like, I don't know, 80 to 87, 80 to 88, because the late 80s were very 90s, so you're kind of that first half or first 2/3.
Yeah, it's there's still like kind of 70s style haircuts that kind of carried over, and
Yeah.
so it's more towards the early middle of the 80s. So
Yeah.
plus it kind of lines up to what age I would have been when I was kind of the age of the kids. So at that time period. So,
Right.
yeah.
So where are we at with the last issue? Tell me
Right.
what's
Ironically enough, or not ironically, but just I'm working on lettering. I just started kind of lettering the book. So I went through and reformatted all the pages, because I the digital pages are like, I draw them at like 11 by 17 digitally at 300 DPI, and then so I went back and reduced all those to the actual printed comic size, which some odd size I never can remember, but it's written down somewhere. So I made versions of all those, scaled them all down and everything, and now I'm just dropping those in Illustrator, and then I've got like a lettering file where I'll go in and what's cool, like Comic Craft I have a new one of their newer fonts. Like I don't know if you've ever bought any fonts from Comic Craft.
No, I haven't.
But their fonts can be kind of expensive, but the first of every year they have a special sale, which is like whatever that year is. So if it's 2024, it's I think $24 per font or something like that.
Oh.
So I go in and buy like their most expensive fonts. So I bought a really nice one that usually sells for around a couple $200, $300, like huge, got everything, like a body copy font. And what it does, it actually will recognize when you're typing the kind of the crossbar eye rule, which if anyone's not familiar, the only time you want to use like a crossbar eye with the line on the top and the bottom is when you're using the I as, or, the pronoun I or whatever. So any other case in the middle of a word, other case in the middle of a word, you don't want to do that. Unfortunately, I started this book before I got that font, so I have to be real meticulous. And it's like I go through it and then I go back and like, oh, I missed one, and so I have to go back because it doesn't, when on my script, I purposely type everything in all caps so I can just drop it in all caps. But now I'm wondering, since this font that I'm using is an all caps font, if I would have just done it in regular case, if it probably would have worked out. But anyway. So it's just stuff like that, but
I'll have to check it. Is Comic Craft? Is it just?
I think it's comic book
like
font.
It sounds.
Yeah, I think, I think comicbookfonts.com will take you there. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's two like major, font companies. There's Blambot and Comic Craft.
Okay.
They're both great. Blambot I think is a little less expensive. Still great fonts. I've got a lot of fonts. I purchased fonts from them, and they have some free fonts and stuff too. But
I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, between those two, that's, I mean, I even make my own fonts. I've got a few, but I'm nowhere near, what they have. So, but
that's a bucket list thing for me. I've talked about this before, like graphic design projects I would like to do at least once in my life. I just checked off a bunch where I did a bunch of beer labels, but one is I would love just to have the experience once, not expecting it would be great, but I would just like to try doing it, is to make a font. I've never made a font before, and it's intriguing. It's a little bit like paleo art though, where I know there are people who are masters of this and they're very, very good, and I know I don't know what I'm doing, so I wouldn't expect much of it, but I would go in with a lot of
I would recommend, if you're gonna do one font, if you're gonna do two fonts, the first one you want to do is like a sound effects font, because they're way easier to do, because if you do a body font, and I've done I think maybe 2 or 3 of those, they are like they take a long time because of all the kerning and all the rules. And I mean, you basically have to match up every single letter combination you can think of. And there's software that kind of helps you to make sure that when those two letters are next to each other, the kerning is right and everything. So those are difficult. And plus, I think I've done one that's both. With most comic book fonts, you don't have to worry about lowercase, but I have done one that has a lowercase in it. That one's even long. That was even harder to do. I don't want to do another one of those. But sound effects is a little different. It's not, you don't have to worry. I mean, there's not as many combinations and things like that, but they're to do them right, they're difficult. Yeah,
really difficult. Yeah, and that's why I would love just to have that experience of seeing all the challenges in it.
Yeah,
because I can imagine some, but I've never actually tried to do it. So
yeah, I use a program called, I think it's called Font Self, and it's like an Illustrator plugin. You just plug it into Illustrator, and then you can create all your stuff in Illustrator and use that. I think I got it on sale. I don't know, and there may be something better now. I got it a while back, but there are other like font creation programs that are kind of standalone, and I think they're a little more pricey. But I saw that one. I'm like, oh, this one, because I like to kind of design in Illustrator, so I'm like, oh, I'm going to go with this one. So yeah.
So how long do you expect to take lettering the last book?
The lettering doesn't take too long, like because I've kind of set that. I had to take a break because this project I was working on, but I usually work on my comic at least an hour a day. So it won't take long, but I think I'm going to, with this one, when I kickstart it, I think I'm still going to do the one where I offer like the full story as like a sort of a trade plus an individual issue of probably just, I don't know if I'll offer individual issues for the other issues. I don't know if there'd be an interest, maybe, I don't know, but at least for the last one, if there's anybody that's been collecting the single issues that just wants that last one in single issue. So I mean, I don't really have a date for like a Kickstarter or anything, just because.
See, that's tough, because I probably would want both. Because I've had floppies of all of them, so I would. Well,
and there would be a tier for that.
But then also, a trade would be great.
Yeah, I probably won't, like last time, like I had you and a bunch of other artists do variant covers. I probably won't do variant covers for this time around. So I don't know what kind of extras, if any, there'll be. That I was working on a project with for a client, and I started work with a colorist that Scott and Keith recommended to me, and they told me not to tell anyone who it is because they don't want him to get so busy that they can't do his own work. But anyway, so I won't mention who that is, but he was great, and I tend with these projects, because there's a decent budget, I tend to pay people more than what they ask for. But for this, since it's my own thing, I probably could only afford to do his own rate. But eventually I might want to do a colored version. It wouldn't be for this Kickstarter, but I may, since I'm at the position where I could probably fund the printing of this one myself, maybe whatever I earn, I'll just put it towards coloring and have an artist start working on the coloring for the next Kickstarter. Do like a deluxe thing. It's it's such a weird thing because I don't know, you do a black and white book, so, and yours is a little different audience, I think, than mine, but it's funny because I've had a lot of people, and it seems like younger people too, they want to see it in color, which is so weird because anime is so popular, especially with younger people, and most animes in black and white. So I don't know what the difference is.
You mean manga?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, not.
No, I'm just clarifying.
Yeah. Sorry. But anime is not in black and white, but manga is.
I remember. I don't know what your experience has been. I remember when I started with the comic, there was a lot of noise out there. Like the conventional wisdom was, oh, you're only going to get a fraction of the audience if you're black and white. Black and white is not, like, people see that as unfinished and all this weird negative black and white energy. I, as often with DvsM, decided I don't care. This is what I want to do. So, and you kind of did the same thing where it's like, I think it looks fine, so this is what we're doing. Maybe I've tuned it out, but I don't feel like I hear that so much anymore. I don't know if it's the rise of manga. I don't know if it's the rise of indies in general, where it's just so much cheaper in terms of printing. Or I would like to think maybe it was just bullshit from the start. Maybe, I've never encountered, actually not never, a couple times I've encountered someone at a con or something saying like, "Are you ever going to do a color version?" Like they'll ask something like that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, no one's ever blinked an eye when they're looking at it and they see black and white. I've certainly never had anyone set it back down saying like, "Oh, I'm not into black and white." That's never happened once. I'm just not convinced. It might have just been a thing we all took on faith, and I don't know if it's real.
I can't remember where, but I have had that reaction, and maybe it's just, I mean, we have very different books,
Mhm.
but it's also weird because like Walking Dead, like probably one of the most successful comics there is, black and white zombie book. You know, I
Yeah.
have a zombie book, black and white, and I tend to gravitate more towards black and white. There's some color stuff out there that really I think looks great. And because mine kind of straddles that whole idea of, yes, it's a zombie comic, but it's also sort of young adult, you know, that
Yeah.
maybe, I was never that curious before, but now I'm kind of curious what a color version might look like. And so I don't know. I mean, that's, I don't know if I ever care to see DvsM in color,
No.
honestly.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many, from a creator standpoint, there's so many benefits to doing black, just the cost of printing. I mean,
Cost.
if I did it in color, I mean, the profit margin, just especially for like print on demand, there's no way. I can't see how some people do that.
I looked
on color
into.
books.
And this is. I agree. I know there's probably some people who would. I know for a fact there's some people who would be curious to see what it looks like, and I've even at times, I've never done it,
Yeah.
but I've at times thought about, just for the exercise, pulling one of the pages into Photoshop and just monkeying, just to see, like, just my own curiosity, like what would that look like?
Yeah, it's also weird with your book because even your covers are black and white and red. Whereas at least with my covers, you can kind of get an idea what these characters might look like in color.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's weird.
I did look into. Well, I've never seriously considered a colorized version of DvsM because I've always drawn it to look.
Yeah. Aside from like the early coloring book, I have like the early coloring book you did.
I had the coloring book, yeah,
and it had colored images on that. Like
yeah. So I have those, but like when it comes to the books, no. But I did toy with the possibility, and I probably had talked about it on this channel. I toyed with the possibility of, now that I have the first half of DvsM done, maybe doing that as a trade. So there'd be like a part 1, part 2 trade, and the thought was, and I think it still makes sense, get out of the floppy game, get out of the game of keeping all the, how it is, like juggling all these floppies. At some point, it's too much inventory, and it would be nice just for the table, just to have one book that's 75, 97, and 79, and then just do floppies, for the remaining 3 until then I have 6, and then do maybe 2 trades or 1 all combined. So I was looking at that, and my vision, I could revise my vision, but my vision for the trade of part 1 would have been to have full color versions of the pulp covers in there. The art I've commissioned, like the people who followed my Instagram, Laura Jacobson's painting of Jenny, and Ryan Quackenbush's of Ruben, and there's going to be one coming of Dr. Wagner. Like all these kind of specialty art pieces, like that would be in there too. Yeah. But if you even have one color page in your trade, it's a color book now, and you pay color prices. And looking at like, okay, well, I know the page count would be something like this, and I'd probably add some bonus material, and I'd add these color pages. What would that be? It was cost prohibitive, like immediately.
Yeah.
And so then the natural thing is, well, I guess I could finally do a Kickstarter, but I kind of want to keep my powder dry and save Kickstarter for a trade of all 6. So it's like, okay, well then I'm just not going to do the trade route. Or at best, what I might do in a year or so is decide my impulse of getting out of the floppy game is still attractive to me. So let's do a black and white version of a trade of part 1. Let's come up with, we won't have all the bonus material I wanted. Maybe that will be as like, I can do prints or something.
Yeah.
That will be a little bit more self-fund feasible. And then someday we'll talk about a giant book that's all 6, that's color and expensive and a Kickstarter and all of that. But yeah, no, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, as far as black and white books, they typically sell for the same cover price as color books, and no one bats an eye. I've never heard anyone say,
no,
why is this black and white book the same price as this color book? I've never heard anyone say that.
No, that's what I mean. I don't think, I mean, it, you know, as with all things, it's just very possible that there's a lot of conventional wisdom that's just taken as like an article of faith that I don't know if it's real. For sure, there are people who prefer color, and for sure, there's people out there, I'm restraining myself from being snarky about it, who feel like black and white is somehow unfinished or not as good or whatever. Like, I'm sure that exists. In my experience, it's not nearly in the numbers that you're led to believe when you're starting out and asking people, should I do color or black and white? You're going to get all this messaging of like, color, you got to do color. Color is the best. People prefer color. Again, I've never felt the difference. I wouldn't know the difference because I've never sold color. I've never felt I lost a sale because it was black and white. And I never had anyone, you know, my books are expensive. Yeah, they're longer, you know, so maybe that makes it palatable. But, you know, they sell from 10 to 15 bucks depending on where I am or what's going on. I've never had anyone bat an eye at the cost, like what you were saying. Like, it was like, well, black and white though, like that's never. And you might say, oh, but they're not going to say that to you. Believe me, they would. Like at a con, they would. They would say if they thought you were too much, or if your art wasn't up to snuff, or it should be color for that price or whatever.
Or they don't even need to say it. Sometimes it could just be with their,
you can tell.
Yeah.
No poker face. Like,
oh, this is you look. Yeah, they're like, oh, super excited. They turn it over, and it's like, okay, well,
and then immediately bail. You know.
Yeah.
I was thinking with yours, your target audience is, I assume, a little younger than mine. Black and white also, I think, assists there. Because even though it's zombie violence, like it's violence. And if you're choosing colors, like now you're kind of, you might add a couple years to the suggested age range just by putting it in color.
I've always, and I mentioned this to, I mean, I'm looking at your cover right here.
Yeah.
And it's also, you know, you use a limited color palette, but I specifically told you to make the blood green.
Yes.
That's part, it's never mentioned in the book, but in this universe, when the zombies zombify, their blood turns green, you know, so it's more of a kind of a gross factor rather than just all bloody and stuff. And also, you know, I would give instructions like anytime I've ever drawn the zombies in color, they're kind of variation of like blues and greens, like their skin changes color too. So it's not like a flesh tone type zombie. It's so, you know, that's something that if I do go into color, that's something that I would let the colorists know and everything. So
yeah, keep it more gross and tamer. Right. Yes, that's a good touchstone. Black and white film of DvsM is reminiscent of Twilight Zone TV show. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember if I'm sure this has come up on the stream before, but the aesthetic of DvsM, well, there are two reasons it's the way it looks. One is I've just always preferred black and white. I mean, we saw it, like, again, I used this as an example. Whoop. Mr. Redondo, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, like all his work. Like to me, this is, if I could draw like this, I would be a happy camper.
Yeah.
You know? Like I think this is as good as anything. And I wouldn't want to see this in color. I think it would look worse in color. Like I think it looks just right as is. So that's part of why I just love black and white. That's why it's part of why it's black and white. The other part is, and now this is very artisty, but I always thought it should have, the art of DvsM should have the aesthetic of a redacted document. So it should be stark white with stark black. Like that's, I mean,
Right.
this is
Yeah, like you could print on a photocopy. Yeah.
yes, yeah, and it should.
You're not going to have grays because those wouldn't come out on a photocopy.
Yes, it's very much just black and white, like you're looking at a redacted document. It's that kind of, it's the same aesthetic, and that was always the thing of we're going to open with this redacted document and fade into the story, and the story sort of references the look of that. Like that was always my headcanon with it. So that's why even if it would look cool colored, which I don't, that's a question mark. I don't know because I haven't tried to do it. It's getting away from the artist intent. So it's why I would just never do it. If a fan wants to do it just for giggles, have a party. But I'm not interested. So we have Art Retreat coming up in a little less than 2 months.
Yeah. We don't have like we haven't even talked about like a venue or anything like that, or like not a venue, but like a Airbnb or whatever we're going to do, or where exactly
we're crashing at Keith's.
Oh, is that what we're doing? Oh,
yeah, Keith is hosting. Like he volunteered.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
So his Crestline house.
Okay, cool.
Which he has talked about on
I didn't know that.
Making comics. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
So he says there's room in the inn for everyone who's gonna descend on it. It'll be what, 2 nights? Yeah, 2 nights. And I'm excited. Everyone's bringing whatever project they're working on, this is what's keeping me on track. I will be showing up with a pile of thumbnails of 2001 and my phone with all the space freed up to take a bunch of pictures. So like, because my intention is really much just I need to get pictures of Scott Lost and I got to get pictures of Josh Kimball. And then
have we got Josh to confirm? Because we got to get Josh and Corey, and hopefully Corey too.
And hopefully Corey will make the journey. Josh, last I heard, he took off for the day.
Okay.
He's going to watch the replay. Josh, I hope.
I think he said you took off from the day from the live stream or
from the live stream. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but I hope he can make it. If nothing else, I mean, I know he's like, he's always got a bunch of projects and things going on, and I know he's got a kid, and there's things. Yeah. So maybe the whole weekend is tough. That even if it's just a day, like that would he'd be able to hang out, and also I'd be able to get those pictures. Otherwise I'll have to plan a separate trip to try and catch him where he is or something. I don't know, but I don't think with smaller parts in the past, like Corey's part in 79, it was possible just to do it, like start a StreamYard and do some screen capturing. Yeah. Like just tell people like make a face like this, turn like this, let me see it from the side, etc.
Yeah, I think that's what I did, even though we
that's what you did. Right. Yeah. And Jim, Josh's part is significant enough where it kind of needs to be in person. It'd be really tough to pull off just through a Zoom call, but we'll see. Yeah, I hope he can make it. But yeah, it should be fun. I'm curious to see like what everyone brings. I'm curious to see.
Well, the one thing I think I'm going to have to do is pay the little extra to bring an extra bag, because we both got flights on Frontier and we budgeted it, and I was surprised that they could get it that low. But I'm like, if it's an extra $30, $40, $50 to bring it back, I think I'm going to do it, just because I don't want to try to because I may want to bring stuff. Who knows, just so I think I'll do that. I forgot about what little money I spent to get the ticket. So I'm like, I think I'm going to add another bag. But
they were really,
but not do it at the airport. I got to do it on the app because
you got to do it ahead. It's even more if you show up and do it. No, I've thought about the same thing. I'm really going to try to get away with just the single bag and see if for people who are flying Frontier, it's one of these, I don't know if it's everywhere. It's one of these super budget airlines. Yeah. Where if you can commit to not picking a seat, only bringing one bag, like basically just being no fuss, no muss, it's really inexpensive. But as soon as you want anything, it's like picking a seat, bringing 2 bags, whatever, like boom, it goes up to kind of normal flight prices.
Yeah, and technically, I think it's just like a backpack is what you can bring.
Yeah, you can bring a backpack. I'm gonna try it with 2 nights. The fact that all I need in terms of equipment is my pile of thumbnails and my phone.
Yeah,
like I'll probably have, I'll throw like a bunch of protein bars or something, and maybe I can make and then some underwear, some toothbrush, like whatever. I think I can do 1 bag. I mean, it's just hanging out with guys for 2 nights. I might be able just to skate on a bag, but we'll see. Once I get to packing, it would be different if I knew I need to bring a device to do my work, or I need to bring a pad of paper or something. Then it might be like, it's getting a little tight.
I still don't know what I'm going to be working on there. So, I mean, I may bring, I've got sort of a mobile setup that has my laptop, and it has like a mobile, it's like a Huion tablet and everything, and that kind of thing. And then I've got the iPad and stuff. But so just because of that, if I do want to set, it's still kind of a cumbersome thing to set up, even though it's somewhat mobile. It's way mobile than the Cintiq, but but yeah, I don't know. Unless what I'm doing, who knows? Who knows where I'm going to be 2 months from now? What I'm going to be working on? It could be
what stage
all traditional, or who knows? So,
look at this. Here we go. Well.
Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2, 3.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Sibilance.
Did you say syphilis?
Syphilis. Yes, that was an old Greek god. I
don't think that's correct.
He flew too close to P. Diddy. So, anyways, hello. I just popped in for a second because I'm actually out and about, and I am working on, shameless plug, the full fungus right now. And
which, by the way, we're overdue for a touch base on full fungus. I'm curious because I feel like you've kind of gone a little dark and been working hard, and I'm wondering where we're at.
Well, number 1, gone a little dark, little racist, borderline racist.
Sorry,
but that's okay. I'm used to it with you, Gary. So that's another topic. But anyways,
that's me.
Everyone knows that. And number 2, I'm for sure in the last quarter of the full fungus. I'm in the last maybe 4 or 5 scenes, and I'm working kind of jumping in between. So I'm getting close to the end, and as Scott just mentioned, and Scott, I can't wait because I will be at that retreat as well. I don't know where I'll be with the project come August. I mean, I'll probably be done with it or just about done with it. So it'll be interesting to see what we're working on when we're there.
Yeah.
So,
you might just be decompressing. You might be.
It might be all pillow fights. So who knows? But we'll see. We'll see.
I think my plans have suddenly changed. I don't know.
I just thought of something. I think I'm going to make sort of a commitment that I'll at least be as far enough. Whether the Kickstarter, I'm sure the Kickstarter won't be done or whatever, but it, like with Young and the Dead, it'll for the most part be done, and maybe even that might be a good time to kind of start the new project, at least ideations and stuff, and kick some ideas around with you guys. So I think so that might just be traditional stuff, sketches and stuff. I don't know, but I think that's what I'm going to aim for. That's probably a good idea.
That sounds fun. That sounds fun. And I know, I don't remember if you publicly discussed the concept. I have. Okay. But I know that's also a concept that Keith in particular is sort of the target audience, and he'd probably enjoy, bouncing ideas.
On a couple different levels, Keith would be interested in that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So.
If I'm not done with the full fungus by August, I will, which I hopefully will be, I'll be working on maybe promotional things for it, which is something we've all discussed that we could use some help with. So that'll be good to brainstorm with you guys. And yes, Gary, it is true. I am going to read your script, and it's on my calendar, and I have an alarm set to read it.
There's an alarm? What is the alarm sound?
The alarm sound is "It's Raining Men" by the Weather Girls.
Yeah.
So that will alarm And no, I don't know. It's just an alarm sound, But I have a comfy spot in my house. Got the lamp set. I will make some tea, and I will sit down and I will read the entire script and weep.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And weep openly. So I'm looking forward to it. Your scripts are always, I've told you this before, they're very, I could see it being a novel easily.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
I try not to shortcut on the scripts. I try to write them in a way where, even though you hear me talk a lot about, I think last episode I was talking about the concern of picking readers who can visualize, like, no, this is going to be a comic, so you're going to be able to see this. You're going to don't treat it just as reading. At the same time, I try to write them in a way where you could just read the script and you have a full experience. Like, I really do try to put the work in, so it's not just picture something here. Like, there's not picture the scariest thing you've ever seen. I write that in. I don't do that.
When I hear, and Scott, I know you'll agree, when I hear Gary talking about the minute detail, the minutia, and how he, like, I was making a joke about the coffee maker, but when I hear that, normally when I hear somebody do that, I pull my hair out, because it's like, I'm like, and they're never going to finish their book.
Right.
Paul Pate, AKA the Golden Boy, as we call him, Paul Pate and I were having this conversation where we say Gary Hodges gets a pass on this because Gary Hodges finishes books.
Yeah.
And so Gary, when I see you dwelling on the minutia, it's almost like you're enjoying a meal. You know what I mean? You're not rushing through the meal. You're like savoring it and like really thinking about like what would go good with this. And,
it's the table setting. It's the beautifully set table, and yes. And like I still want to deliver the food. I still want the food to be good, but it's making sure, the knife is
my approach is, if you've ever tried to carry a bag of dog food in the house and the dogs are jumping and then the bag is open and all the food goes all over the floor and it's a frenzy, that's my approach.
Right. Which is also valid. Yeah.
But hey, opposites attract. And I think that's why you and I, as creators, really, we like magnets. We're drawn to each other because our approaches are so different.
You seem to collect creators that have wildly different approaches, like, because I'm thinking about Corey as well.
Yes.
Like these people who, like, if you had to do their process, you would lose your mind.
Well, Corey Kerr is legally insane. He is, and we all know he's a nut. But see, the funniest thing about Corey, unlike me, I think, and Corey seems like a normal person. Mm-hmm. So when you meet him, his superpower is that he's actually insane. Yeah. So, and if anybody watching this ever gets to spend time with him, you'll realize you're quietly insane, Corey. And he'll be like, "Yeah, I am. Yeah, thank you." So, I mean, we know. Look at his injuries. Look at his injuries.
Look at the injuries. See, I'm thinking this is an interesting question for the table. Of all of the whole extended Artcasters family, which of us? And I this isn't a leading question. I honestly don't know. Which of us passes for the most normal?
Scott.
If someone met us all at a dinner party, who seems that Scott? Yeah, I would agree. Probably Scott, right?
Okay, now I got to know the explanation on why. I mean, I out of the majority of people, I could probably agree with you. I'm just wondering, like, say compared to maybe Josh. Well, I guess Josh just because he's so. I mean, so work. Even, I don't know.
Once Scott, Josh, once he opens his mouth, okay, you're an artist or you're music. Yeah. You're music.
Yeah, like if you had a 5-minute conversation with all of us, how many of us would reveal an interesting quirk and or personality defect in the first 5 minutes? I feel like I think Scott has the best odds of not doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that make me like super boring?
No, it makes you probably the healthiest, the most well-rounded, the most.
Or a very good suspect for a serial killer.
Right, or Ted Bundy.
Yeah,
one
of the two.
Exactly.
No,
He just
I
seemed
only,
like such a nice boy.
Mhm.
so I know
He was a
this
great neighbor. He was fine.
because before Gary and I started talking, I'd seen you on the Artcasters, and my initial impression was a little bit hippie-ish. So you weren't normal. I knew this.
Yeah.
I knew Gary. I was like, oh, he's probably into the Grateful Dead. And then
That was also, I think there's a lot of I got a lot of baggage with when I had the long hair, where there's a lot of assumptions of what's going on here, that some fair, but others, like you're into the Grateful Dead.
my other thought was this boy is very Christ-like. So.
Yeah, how wrong were you? I remember you telling me that in a phone call. You're like, I remember you saying, like, you just seem. We were talking about somebody, and you were like, your patience with them.
No,
you just seem very Christ-like, and
it's
I was
because
like, oh no,
you
Jim's
told-
really in for a letdown.
Gary told me, he said, I'll be your personal Jesus. Pick up the receiver. I'll make you a believer. So,
right. Yeah.
So that's how that happened.
That was actually a poem I sent you. I wrote myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, not to get too sidetracked, which we always do, but I know that what happened to the topic of the show, Gary, it's characters. We're talking about character creation.
Yes.
And I had a post today on Instagram that as I wrote it, I thought, it's kind of a cool, it is my approach to creating. As I wrote, there's no background characters. There are only characters.
That's right.
And I really do believe that. I mean, every character, everything that you put into your art, whether you just do a quick sketch or something, it adds to the total project.
Yes.
And so this is where people can get trapped, though. They can start focusing on the minutia too much, But it goes to show, though, that it does all matter. There's no throwaway. And I really enjoy creating background characters. I don't know. I know you do too. But I just wanted to interject that. That is my motto for this project, and I think for life. There are no background characters. There are only characters.
That's right.
So.
No, it's one of what it makes me think of is, so in this story that I'm working on, there are 6 guys, and not everyone makes it to the end of the story. So, and I think now as the writer, I know who of these people are not going to make it. Yet making sure that you're writing them all, like, I don't want any red shirts. You know what I mean? For a Star Trek analogy, I don't want anyone that very clearly, for people who may not be as nerdy as me, in Star Trek, if somehow you've missed this pop culture thing, Star Trek, the original series, they would beam down to the planet, they would have an adventure. It would be McCoy, it would be Kirk, it would be Spock, and then there'd be a red shirt, just some dude, that you've never seen before, who 100% is going to get killed because you've never seen him before and he's going down to the planet. So something I'm thinking about red shirts a lot with this book, where even though some of these characters aren't going to make it, some of them, their role in the story really is to create stakes by something bad happening to them, is to not tip my hand with that, for there not to be a tell where you realize, like, oh, well, this character is very clearly a red shirt. This character has not had a meaningful line. This character doesn't seem to be doing anything in the story. Like, so there's no tells of how this is going to go. To me, it's a little bit like, there's no side characters. Also no red shirts.
I can't wait to read it. I really am looking forward to tonight. So it's going to be a good time. Gary, I got to go because Leanne doesn't know where I'm at. She thinks I could be murdered or running. Yeah. Hey, Scott, by the way, I want to say before I go, Scott, you are not boring. You are not. You are. Leanne and I went to breakfast with Scott a few months back when he was out here. And as we were leaving, we saw Scott kill a man with a salt shaker.
Yeah.
And it was horrific, but it was very well done. And he's not, I just want to let you know.
That you wouldn't know in the first 5 minutes at a cocktail party. You wouldn't know.
When that man fell out of his wheelchair, I knew that it was.
See, that's why I waited for you guys to leave. I mean, but I didn't know you were looking back through the window there.
Well, to be fair, that guy did side eye you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So, but anyways, all right. With that, I will say au revoir. I know Corey's probably going to jump on and tell him that I love him, but I think he's insane.
Okay, we'll let him know that you
Quietly,
think he's clinically insane. Yeah,
quietly insane.
Quietly, yeah.
Okay, all right, guys.
But discoverable in 5 minutes. Okay, so here we go. All right, Jim Lujan, everybody. I'm very eager. I'm assuming we will get a sneak preview, a preview screening of Full Fungus, because I know he's not. Last I heard, maybe this has changed. Last I heard, when he's done, it's not going to immediately go on his YouTube because he's thinking about doing the film festival.
Yeah.
So
definitely in that case, I don't want to wait. If I know it's complete,
yeah,
I don't want to wait.
yeah. So I'm hoping that at least we will get a private screening rather than. I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. Jim, we will, right? Certainly we will.
Yeah, I just Jim and I just recorded some lines just last week, and he kind of expanded my part a little bit, so I'm kind of excited about that.
Excellent. I've literally lost track of how many different characters he's asked me. None of them are huge. None of them are like big important characters. They're just a variety of. Even though he said there's no background characters, there's only characters. I almost completely background characters, but more. I've lost track of how many. So I'm kind of curious about the movie, not only because it's Jim's latest movie and I know a lot about it, and I'm very excited to see it. I'm also looking forward to remembering, like, oh yeah, I did that one. Like, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, that's me. So.
Yeah, up until this point, I was just happy to have my name on the back of somebody's T-shirt. So it'd be cool. It's going to be cool to have the first time I've ever got to do a voice in one of Jim's animations for it to actually be like a super fun part and not just kind of like a bit part. So
right, this is. I think he said this. This for sure is the biggest cast he's ever had. I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of characters in this, and again, not all giant parts, but just lots of different people. And it seems like almost everyone, again, in the Artcaster's extended family is in there somewhere, and a few other people as well. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see the final thing. I'm excited about it. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to add pressure to him or whatever, but it could be his best yet, just based on the little bit I've seen. And like, I'm very excited that this will be an impressive accomplishment. But.
Yeah, I'm also anxious to see how everything goes with, like he said, he's going to be doing the film circuit and all that kind of stuff, which I just think it's, I think it's going to be really well regarded. And
well, and he's, like so many in our crew, someone who deserves more attention.
Yeah.
And we bond a lot when we talk over the fact that we're terrible at self-promotion. I suspect I'm the worst of any of us, but I am excited about the fact that with this one, he has this mentality of, as soon as it's done, like, I'm going to really try and concentrate on that. Because he's one of those creators where I see his work and I just feel like more people should know about him. Like he should be out there. Like this should be a guy that more like people are hearing about. And so I'm excited that he might. I would like to try. I told him when he first floated the film festival thing, I don't have a ton of contacts here in town, but I know a couple sort of indie cult film people in town that do screenings and stuff. And if I can help in any way and try and get like a little screening going here, I would love to do it. I think, like I said, more people need to be familiar with Jim Lujan. So
I agree 100%.
So, not committing you to a date. You said Art Retreat, you may be done with the last book, The Last Young and the Dead.
Yeah, I should
Would
be
you be
done.
done with the Kickstarter or not
No,
yet?
no.
Yeah.
I because I want to go back because I'll be done with this issue, but then
Yes.
because I'm gonna collect it. I want to go back and just make sure everything lines up with with all the other issues when I put together like a, put it all together as a complete volume. So that won't be done probably, but at least
will there be any special editioning? Will there be
I don't think with this. I don't.
I'm gonna tweak up like the first one or the second?
If there's anything that I'll have to look over it. There may be a few things here or there if I catch anything, or if I'm just very like I just don't because it's taken me so long to go back to do this whole thing. Some things may have changed a little bit. There may be some of that, but I think if I do that second one, which will be color, I don't want to. If I put out another book, I don't want the only difference just to be that it's in color. With that, I want to have a lot of extra, like additional material, like maybe even I had an idea for an additional story, like a little short story, like sort of a little prequel story, a few of the other characters that would happen before everything what they were doing and stuff like that, and just maybe put the different sketches in and maybe even commission some more. I mean, the different covers and commission maybe some more stuff or whatever, and have like a really cool like deluxe version for another Kickstarter down the road. But
cool. Yeah.
That's the plan so far anyway. So, but the book will be done, the only thing really after this lettering is I got to do the cover and color the cover, and that's not going to take whatever 2 months or whatever. So,
right.
So, but I think I do like that idea that's a perfect opportunity to start kind of, I don't care about all the little extra things that come into play when putting together the Kickstarter, because that's kind of like busy work, and like that's not taken away from I don't want to start the other project when I'm still in creative mode with this, with Young and the Dead.
Right.
But all that other stuff is just like, putting things together. It's not gonna take away from the creative part of it's already going to have been complete. So I can then start focusing on a new project. And I think that'd be perfect opportunity to do that. So,
right.
And have, people to bounce ideas back and forth from, and because it's all going to be, I've got a germ of an idea, but there's so much that needs to be fleshed out. So I think that makes a lot of sense for me to do that. I don't know why that just occurred now, and I hadn't thought about that before, but it makes perfect sense. But
I'm sure we'll talk about this more in the months to come. It might be a little early, but has it sunk in that you're nearing the end of this big Young and the Dead journey? Are you feeling that yet, or is it still? Not quite?
Not quite. Yeah, and I'm really bad about. And this is something that I went through the whole transformational leadership thing, and one of the things they teach you is like celebrate, take time, once you complete something, celebrate it, and I'm still like sometimes. That just when I finished drawing, when I finished the art part, now I'm onto the lettering, but when I finished the art part, I didn't really even take the time to sit back and reflect and like, man, all the artwork for Young and the Dead is done. It's like, that's a big thing. So I have to, kind of remind myself just to like congratulate myself and celebrate, when I have these milestones. So
the little wins.
Because I'm just such like, oh, now that to me, it's like, oh, that frees me up to do the next thing. And I'm focused on the next thing when I don't take the time to really enjoy and appreciate what I've accomplished.
That's true. That's true. I'm going to have to think about that, because I think the only time I really allow myself that is when I get a proof of a finished book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long, that you're talking about years between celebrating little accomplishments. I guess in theory, probably in the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to celebrate like, all right, the script is final. And then I'll be able to celebrate, all right, I've got it thumbnailed, and all right, I've got the pages planned, and all right, I that might be good for my morale to think about that more.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So no, it has not. That hasn't really sunk in yet.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. Because you've been, I know I've asked you this before, but I always forget. How many years since you started?
I don't know. I don't like that when I get that question. Then I'm like, no. I think it's probably been at least 10 years for 6 issues at least. Yeah, because it's kind of when I started on YouTube, and I know I've been probably doing YouTube for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The first, whatever that first round of 100 days. Oh, that was the second issue actually. 100 Days of Making Comics. Because I did the first issue for the Mini Comics Dump Truck. When 100 Days of Making Comics started, that was, I think, me working on the second issue. So yeah, it's very way longer than, but I, and then going back to what we were talking about before, not appreciating it. It does dawn on me that, from time to time, like, man, because there's times like, at the rate I'm going, I'll never finish this thing.
Right.
And I'll never finish it. And even from the last issue, I'm like, the last issue I did, and a lot of that props to Scott Loss for kind of introducing the Slack method.
Yeah.
I think that's a big reason why this issue probably took a lot less time than previous issues. It came out a lot faster. There's not going to be as much of a gap between issues this is the biggest issue. Every other issue has been 22 pages. This one's like 32, I think. 30.
That's 32. Right. This one's longer.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's like, it's funny to look back and like, even the last issue, I got another issue done, but I still got one to go. I'm never going to get it done. And here I am. So it's crazy.
No, it is. I mean, you're going to be, I'm trying to think, have any of us, I'm doing the inventory in my head. For those of us or the people we know who are doing a series. So Keith with, his books, Scott Loss with his books, you and me.
Yeah. Josh
has 2 stories. That I would consider sort of a, Jim.
Jim's a little different.
Jim's different. And Corey's different.
I know with Scott Loss, I could be wrong. He can correct me, but I know he's a big fan of Savage Dragon, which I think is the plan for that is just to keep going on forever. I think that's his plan with Second Shift. I don't know if I think Wanderers is different. I think
Wanderers is different. Yeah. So but I'm trying to.
He's about to wrap up on both Kadoja and I think 3 Protectors, isn't he?
In like a short span of time, right?
Yeah.
So that you will probably be, because I don't know where he's at with that. I think you will probably be the first of us to have that experience of closing down a multi-year, multi-part comic project.
Yeah, I don't know if that's as big an accomplishment because I think they've probably been more productive, Scott and Keith, as far as the amount of issues they put out, but
but by what metric? I mean, it's still it's, I mean, whatever. That's, so I don't know. That's still, I'll be interested to hear your reaction to it because of those ones that I named, I will certainly be the last. Like, I know my timeline and I know it's, I'm a few years away. So I think even.
You probably started later though.
I started later.
I mean, as far as the books, I know you had it as a concept.
And they take me a couple years to do each book. So already it's like, okay.
Well, me too. And my books are a lot shorter. So at least,
Yeah, but I started later. I don't remember offhand like when 75 came out, but it was, I know if I'm maintaining my schedule, and it's every other year release, which I think is a safe assumption. So this one, 2001, will be out late next year, presumably. So 2025. DvsM 5 will be 27. And the last, it'll close out in 2029.
Wow.
So like, so yeah, you figure like, okay, well, certainly the only one who might compete for last, I don't know what Josh's timeline is for 2 stories. I assume that he's like hand drawn, hand lettered, hand everything handed to you. That like, you know, I don't know if like maybe we'll be competing for who's last, but I imagine he'd be done before me.
I don't know how far along I forgot, because he had started it, I think.
Then
he got sidetracked with the new project, but
right.
So I don't know how far along he was on 2 stories, the second volume.
For sure, I would have to think he'll beat me. Like
I would think so.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Like I'm a long way. The point being, I'm a long way from that experience of like, oh, this huge multi-year thing is like finally done, and knowing what that feels like. I think everyone.
But in some ways it's different with you because your books are self-contained for the most part.
Yeah. Though Though I do. I don't want anyone to misconstrue. Like my creative life is all about DvsM, but it is definitely at the stage now, about slightly more than halfway, where I do think about what I would do after, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that's not fatigue. It's just thinking about like, I've always imagined this would be probably the last comic I would do. You know, that I would do all these and then I would do something, I would do screenplays or a novel, or I would learn to oil paint, or I would do something just totally different, you know, learn to play guitar. But like it's for sure they're self-contained, and I kind of have, it's a little bit more like Jim in that regard, where each time it's like, well, this is its own thing. At the very least, at the end, it'll tie up the whole story, but it'll also be the end of the comic journey for me.
You never know, because because as much as I, you know, all the stuff I do with the YouTube and everything like that, there's part of me that was like, man, would I get done with Young and the Dead? I mean, other than maybe a little mini comic here or there, you know, I don't think I'm going to do anything, you know, like that again. It's just, there's just so much involved, and it's, you know, it takes so much time, and it's not like a huge money earner. I mean, and other than comic projects for clients and things like that. But then I came up with this idea, and I still kind of want to I don't want it to be as big as Young and the Dead. I want it to be either self-contained or something like that. Maybe little, but so I don't know exactly what that's going to look like as far as the size of that. But you never know. Because
that's true. You never know. But I can't tell if it's just because I'm in the middle of this multi-part saga. My inclination would be, if I ever did do a comic again, it would be like a one-off, and it would probably be something completely different. You know, it would be more cartoony, or it would be more, I don't know, something. But I still, I feel like you never know when I didn't even know the DvsM idea would strike, and I didn't know that I would want to commit this much time to it. But my gut tells me I don't know. I can't imagine doing this again.
Yeah.
You know, and again, not a complaint. It's not like, oh, it's not like that, but to me, not that I would know this from personal experience, to me, it's the same energy of like, you know, a 50-year-old saying like, I can't imagine having babies again. It's not not saying like, I don't like babies, I didn't love having them at the time. It's not like that. It's just like, no, I did it, and now I'm satisfied, you know. And I think that's kind of how I'm feeling with, I'm really excited about these last 3 books. I think I'm really excited to write and draw. I mean, I've already written now the 4th one, but I'm really excited to write the last 2 and draw all of them. Like I like the ideas I have, and I am excited to see this whole thing tied up into a neat little story. But yeah, I also am. It'll be like graduating from high school or something where it's like, okay, cool. I'm not going back. That was cool,
Yeah.
but I'm not going back. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hour 40 minutes. I think I only loosely adhered to the topic today, but that's fine. It's a live stream, whatever. Next, I try to, this has been helpful to me to set a sort of aspirational goal for the next stream to keep me on track. So let me look at my calendar and figure out when that will be and what I would like to say I've accomplished by then. So that will be June 23rd. Okay. So here's reasonable goals. I will have touched base with the remaining 3 readers and gathered all those notes. I think by then it's reasonable that I will have done another pass on the script based on, with integrating ideas I've had since while I've been waiting, and maybe if I want to integrate any feedback from people. So do another pass or 2. What I would like to be talking about next stream is gearing up to thumbnail. I think that, because that would be the next step. Once I have a script more or less locked down, that's when I need to, and you've seen, I think with all 3 of the previous books, I've had some kind of video about this in my YouTube. If you dig into past videos, my tradition of going to the library with like a red pen and a highlighter and going through the script and basically circling like, this is a panel, this is a panel, this is a panel, like identifying what my panels are to tell this story, thumbnailing those. And then from there, everything kind of, it almost is like a machine. It just sort of like you have your list of panels. When you have a panel count, you can start guesstimating how long this thing will be, like a page count. Then I can start figuring out my layouts by identifying my key panels. Like this is a 2-page spread. This is a full page spread. This is a page turn, like whatever, like, and start placing those and then building everything out from those. And you eventually have a book. So that's all. This is basically the next few months. What I intend by the next thing is to be gearing up to thumbnail, because I still have to have all my thumbnails done and be comfortable with my page count by the time Art Retreat comes around, August 2nd, because I need to know what reference photos I need. And to do that, I need my thumbs, and I need to be happy with my thumbs because I know this results in a page count that is doable and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so yes, now that I've talked this all out loud, next time I've heard back from all my readers. I have integrated my revisions and perhaps theirs into the script. I'm very close to calling the script done, to move on to maybe that coming week, thumbnailing. That's where I would like to be next time. You can check my work when we get there. Let's see. Scott, what is on your agenda?
Up until the retreat, or just
short, long term, whatever. What's on your mind right now?
I'm just gonna continue. I'm working on a new video. I'm trying to find a partner to help promote it, like I did with a previous video. So I'm kind of waiting to hear back from that, but it's fairly far along. Okay. I think I kind of previewed that. You kind of know what it's going to be.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about that. So yeah, working on a new video, lettering the comic book. I'm working on. I want to get an Etsy store up for my trading cards. I want to make some more trading cards. So that's kind of that's pretty much what's in the near future for me. Just pushing forward with Young and Dead, getting it all lettered, and maybe if I get it all lettered, who knows how long it might be this week or next week. I'll get it lettered, and then I got to start thinking of a idea for the cover and design a cover for it. So that's kind of in the near future what I'll be working on.
Do you already have an idea for a cover, or no?
I have no idea, honestly, because this is usually I have an idea. Like most of them take place in a particular location. Like second one took place mostly in a treehouse, so I've got that in the background. One took place in an arcade. One took place, there's a big section that took place in a garage. This one kind of takes place in the same area as it left off, where it's this big kind of research facility, and it's a little boring. There's not as far as the backgrounds and stuff, it's it's just rooms and stuff like that. So I really don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Up until now, I've always done sort of I don't know what you call it, but my covers are mostly like you would expect to see from like a first issue. Like you've got the characters and something like that. Just kind of a collage of not collage, but just just characters in kind of cool poses.
Right.
I may go with something completely different from this. I don't know. I'm not. I really.
I think being last chapter maybe opens up different possibilities for the cover.
There's a villain that was introduced. Maybe I do a close-up on the villain.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I may just do something totally different. And then not only that, but I guess I have to do a separate. I would want for the collection, I would want a whole separate cover. I don't want that to be the same cover as the last issue, obviously. So that one I think I'll have a little more fun with, I think, because that would kind of go back to the ultimate, like, okay, this is for the whole thing. How do I summarize everything in like one cover? So
that will be fun. That will be fun, especially now with the benefit of looking back over this whole thing. You might have some fun ideas for that. Well, that's exciting. That's exciting. I'm looking forward to the Kickstarter. Of course, I will be there.
I haven't even really thought too much about that yet. I know it's coming, but it's that to me, that's kind of all in due time.
Sure. So you got to finish for but then I imagine it'll be sometime this year. That's the
probably I would say probably be and I don't know. I'd have to look if there's any like blackout days where you're not supposed to run a Kickstarter. Like I don't know if you're supposed to run one at the end of the. I don't know if there's anything like that or
during holidays or something.
I don't know.
Does that matter?
So
okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching today or watching the replay. Thanks to Jim for popping in. Like I said, I will be back, whatever this is, 2 weeks from today, Sunday, same time, 10:30 a.m. Hopefully with good news about my progress and topic TBD. Scott, thanks for coming by.
Absolutely. Thank you.